everyone. Welcome to Spirit Coffee Talk this week. I am Elyse. I am medium channel with Avalon Spirit, joined by the lovely Ginette. We're missing our third counterpart this week, and we miss her and send her love. How are you doing? How's it going?
Good. I'm great. It's Friday. It is this morning I was thinking, I'm like, today is Freedom Friday. Whatever
Oh,
that means. It is Freedom Friday. And
I like it.
maybe I'm rolling with that with my crazy curly hair this morning that I just decided to leave out of simply freedom. But maybe it is actually a responsive conscious choice, right? With the crazy energies going on. Because as we were talking a little bit before, it seems to just kind of get a little bit more intense and more intense and more intense, whether that be internally, astrologically, or in the world. I mean, the war, for one, is a continually intense whirling of stuff and threats, and I mean, we are so. I do want to put out that like our experience of it here versus there is vastly different. So I'm not um, discrediting that absolutely, but let's talk specifically about the timeline factor that I think a lot of people are feeling and is still currently at play, and that may have a shift on the 30th,
Mhm.
right? So go for it. You go ahead.
Well, yeah, I was just gonna say before we get like fully into it, one of the things that I've been really experiencing with that is like the intensity, whether it's like collectively or experiences happening over the world that we're watching or our own experiences that are happening, it feels like everything is speeding up and we're kind of going 100 miles an hour, but we don't know where we're going. And so it's like it kind of feels like all these things are happening and yet you have no control over it, or like things don't feel like they're falling into place, or like I keep seeing it as like I'm in the midst of like juggling all these things and they all just kind of got like suspended in the air and they're all just kind of like hanging up there and I'm like waiting to catch them all, but it's kind of just like I don't know when they're going to drop and where they're going to drop. And so that it's that feeling of like the intensity happening and things are happening, but we're kind of stuck in between. And I've really been having a hard time like navigating that sensation and experience. It's different than what I think I've experienced before. Normally when things aren't happening, everything feels slower.
Yeah.
Or things are happening fast and things are happening fast. It's like not the dichotomy of both.
Yeah.
Which is interesting that we talked about both and around the equinox.
Yeah. Well, totally. So if we go into a little bit of that, like things moving fast, yet we don't know which one and where it's going. In Cosmic Consciousness on Wednesday, in the Cosmic Consciousness Circle, I do, Spirit kind of explained that a bit, and I just wanted to give reference to that for everyone. So here's my beautiful drawing of the flower of life. Okay, so each circle represents essentially one aspect of yourself, right? One aspect of your incarnation. So if we go with the idea of multiple parallel lives, and we put it in the imagery of the flower of life, you can see how these different multiple parallel versions of self are kind of um, overlapping each other a little bit. Okay, so that's just a general idea. Now, if we flip this on its side, so it's flat like a pancake here, and then we spin it, right? It's spinning here. Essentially, what's happening right now, why it's feeling really fast, is these potential timelines with the spin are merging or converging faster and faster on each other. So not only do we have personal individual timelines like mine or yours or whoever's watching, but also we have the world collective multiple timelines converging and merging. Now, the faster that they're spinning right now, the more options and potentials we're feeling of like which one, no, oh, which one. It's like watching people in a merry-go-round and trying to have a conversation with one person, right? But what we're also trying to do right now is pull down, each individual person is trying to pull down their highest, most desired timeline. So the more you can stay focused on that, the more you can pull that down. And so what's hard right now is we may start to feel like we're pulling down some alignments. We're like, okay, yeah, I'm drawing these things to me. But then with the speed of what's happening, if we don't stay really grounded in that, it can get sucked back up kind of, and then we have to re-pull it down again, but it may have shifted or changed a little bit. So not only is it just one linear timeline that's shifting, but there's a spin on the potentials of that linear timeline. And then we also, on top of that, have spirit essentially slowing down some timelines they did, right? Like if we take this as a timeline and they literally pulled it so that these different juncture points of these beads have a space in between. And so we've been experiencing the turning multiple timelines, the slowing of timelines, the pulling of down, like pulling it down, feeling like we know where it's going, but then it gets yarded back up because we get distracted. All of that to say is it makes for a very chaotic experience right now, even to those that are quite feely. Light workers, empaths, intuitives, mediums, healers, all of this, those that can feel the greater things, it's like, which one am I feeling? I have no idea. Right? So,
Yeah, and then on the flip, or not on the flip side, but in addition to that, then we're also kind of experiencing this like bouncing between very like intense, heavy 3D things, and the pull that we maybe have to open up more spiritually or our intuitive gifts or whatever. And like it kind of feels like emotional whiplash a little bit because one minute you're like, okay, I feel really grounded in this. Then the next minute you're like, I feel completely ungrounded and completely like turned around. And I was chatting with one of my coaching clients yesterday, and we were talking about how um, spirit came through, and they were talking about how like, what do you do? What do we tell you to do when your head's in the clouds, when you're feeling really spacey, when you're feeling like things aren't like making sense, and you feel really ungrounded? You ground back into earth. You put your feet on the ground. You put your feet in the grass. You get outside. You and she was saying like, oh yeah, I've been feeling really called into nature instead of my normal routines or my normal things that I'm doing. And I think it's like when we it's easy to forget when you're in the midst of like the kind of chaotic feeling that's happening, like what can I do to feel more stable right now? Well, I
mhm,
could ground, right? That's all almost always one of my go-tos when I'm feeling off or like flighty or like I don't know what I'm doing or I feel really out of control or whatever is happening, is grounding, getting outside, getting into nature, putting my feet in the grass, getting into the sunshine, or even just like sitting on the floor or laying on the floor. All of those things can be really beneficial, but it's easy in the like, oh, craziness of it to forget that. So that, and that seems like it's something they're really encouraging us right now.
mhm. And I think too with that, one of the things that Mother Earth and Gaia actually explained too, which I thought was really neat, was how Earth is actually our human home frequency, right? Like as souls, we often long for that feeling of home that we just feel separated from and we don't quite know what it is. And many people want to, be on the other side or be in the stars or something because they long for that soul home frequency. But what Gaia has here is our human home frequency. But we have to consciously choose to tune into her and ground into her. And so I like that you said, like, even like laying flat on the grass,
Mhm.
if you can, is like one of the best grounding forces. And if flat on your back isn't quite doing it, flip on your front,
Mhm.
right? Be like face and body to Gaia, and like that'll ground you. That'll just pull you right in, right? To kind of resettle these energies because the weird time delays and the messing around a little bit with time has been really hard on people,
Mhm.
right? Like it's been really disjointed. It has taken flow out
Mhm.
and thrown in kind of it, I'm almost kind of seeing like when you're skiing and if you're in flow, you're just going right down the mountain, right? But when you mess with timelines, it's like when you crash and you yard sail and you have to go up and down and around the mountain to find all your things,
Yeah.
right? That's what the timeline slows totally make me think of. So,
Yeah. And I think too, we forget like how much of a toll that can take on our human bodies. Like I'm noticing I'm extra tired. I'm extra, and And I also think too, a lot of people are experiencing, and I think this just happens in spring in general, especially in Canada. It's like you come out of the darkness and the cold and the raininess, depending on where you live, or the snow, and then it's like, open the spring windows and like the floodgates open, right? Like everything's busy, kids are busy, families are busy, we're getting out of town, we're doing all the things, and
Mhm.
life tends to speed up in general in the spring. And then when there's also this kind of like chaotic energy that's happening, especially given that like COVID is still happening and there's a lot going on with that and there's a lot going on in the world. It's so easy to forget how much we're actually holding on to and experiencing. And I know for me, I was kind of getting a little frustrated with myself or with, the way things were going, or that something wasn't playing out the way I felt it was going to be guided towards. And so I was like, what the heck is going on? And he told me one thing and now we're going another direction. And just kind of feeling a little bit frustrated with that. And I think just coming back to like, can we have some grace for ourselves in those moments? Like in those moments, I know for me, when I'm starting to get like feeling inside, I need to slow down because I'm holding too much and I'm going to end up like blowing my lid. So I need to like scale it back, carve out some space for myself. And that doesn't have to be like sacred space. I watched like Selling Sunset for 2 hours yesterday morning just to like be chill and like watch something fluffy and drink my coffee with my dogs. It can be whatever, but just refocusing to whatever it is for you that makes you feel kind of like held and calm and that you can recharge, even in little bits, because I think there's a lot happening and like playing into the equation of everything right now.
And I think those are great points. I think too, with the idea of a lot happening, there's a lot of what is happening that we can't control. Like there's a lot of stuff happening outside us that directly impacts us right now. It's not stuff that we can just be like, oh, whatever, it's easy. It's actually energetically impacting us. And, information wise, it is impacting us. And timeline wise, it is impacting us. So there is a lot that is actually having a direct influence. And
Mm-hmm.
so I think it's really good to be really aware of what you need, because I know for me, when things start to kind of go wobbly or whatever, I want to get in there and then take the helm. Right? I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, "Okay, let me get in there and I'll get it done. I'll figure it out. I will whatever," because I have no problem doing that. But in these kinds of situations, when they are greater external forces, it's like there's all I can control is my own next choice for me. And so
Mm-hmm.
I find what I have to do in those when I'm getting too whirly and I'm trying to control how spirit should do this is I have to completely surrender and drop the reins of all the things.
Mm-hmm.
Like I have to find my way back to the most simplest thing of like literally laying in the grass in the sun, and that's it. That's all that matters in that moment, is that. And sometimes it's a fight to get there because I get so whirly that I'm like, okay, well, if I can't control that, then what I will do is I'll do this, or I'll do this, or I'll get this for my kids, or I'll do that. Like I'll find all these levels of staying really busy.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so having it for me, it's having to unpack all of those levels to get back to the simple moment of Ginette needs to lay in the grass. Just
Mm-hmm.
not to talk to spirit. It's not laying in the grass to talk to spirit and figure out what's going on.
Yeah.
It's to lay in the grass to lay in the grass.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And that's a challenge.
Mm-hmm. They're being funny right now. So, because I'm very much the same way. I'm like, tell me what the hell's going on. I need to plan. I've got all these things that are happening and it's like almost May and like, come on, I gotta be organized. Otherwise I'm gonna be stressed. And they were just saying as you were talking that they're like, some of you that really like control, we will often tell you even less, because even though you might be aware of your control and you might say like, oh, I'm not going to try and influence it, your human response in a chaotic situation is to do that. That is a fight and flight response. So it's like you can think you're as evolved as you want or aware, self-aware as you want, but you're still going to try and control it. So we're just not going to tell you the things that we can tell you. But right now, especially, there's even less to tell because it's like we're still sorting things out. So not only are we probably not going to tell you because you're control freaks, but we don't have anything to tell you right now. So go have fun spinning out, or
Yeah.
here's some nice grounding activities you can do to try and get through. And I find it funny that like will text sometimes if we're feeling frustrated and be like, I just had a conversation with spirit and I just told them what was up, thinking that they're like, oh, okay. I take your feedback.
It's true. Although they do want the feedback,
I know
like
they do,
they do want it, but that was exactly what they said to me when I finally the other day laying out in the sun just for me, not for any reason. After about five minutes or so of just laying there and just being, then suddenly spirit showed up and I was like, where have you been? And they're like, where have you been? It's like, oh, point taken, right? And the whole understanding of how busy I like to keep myself all came flooding in. And they're like, you got in your own way, and that's what you do when it feels chaotic. And I'm like, it's true. And it's like this humbling experience of surrender. And so I think sometimes, as hard as it is, when there are so many external factors we can't control, the value of surrender is so big because in the actual moments of surrender, not trying to surrender, but when the energy actually clicks in it, um, we can actually gain so much.
Mm-hmm.
But the journey to getting to that level of surrender is sometimes really challenging for people, me included. There's sometimes I can surrender really easily. I'm like, okay, it's not mine. I'm going to let it go. And other times I'm trying really hard to control my surrender, right? Which is not surrendering.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah, it's true. And I thinking back to in times when I was, say, getting impatient about something, or maybe I had intuitions about X, Y, and Z is coming in the future, and it wouldn't be happening, and I'd start to question, like, was that real? Did I misinterpret it? Whatever. The ego in that moment wanted to like try and figure out, and usually what would happen is I would have to like let it go completely and maybe even believe that it wasn't true or it wasn't going to happen, because then I'm just like, okay, whatever, I'm just letting it go, like it is what it is. If it happens, great. If not, then oh well, I misread it.
mhm.
And then a month later, 2 months later, the thing happens pretty much exactly the way I would have predicted, or the intuition that I had would have aligned up completely with it, and then yet I couldn't have even known. Like the way that it happened was, I didn't want to go to that thing and then I met the person, or something happened on a date that I expected, but I was completely distracted because of X, Y, and Z. Like they took me and my brain out of the game,
Yeah.
um, because I would have. It's just our human condition. Like we thrive in when we feel like we have control. We love certainty. We love to know what's going to happen, and the reality is like we have such little control. And that's the one thing, not the one thing, but one of the biggest things that we like desire and crave so deeply is that certainty and control. So it's interesting lesson.
And oh, sorry, Maddie. I just booted her in the face by accident. She's still sleeping. Um,
She's fine.
she's fine. One of the things
Daddy is
that
us right now.
it's true. One of the things my guides are saying right now is that um, they're saying the act of surrender to things you can't control is actually your greatest choice. Right? That like you actually are giving yourself power in that moment of surrendering what you can't control, because trying to control what you can't is like um running up against a brick wall. Like it's
Mhm.
pointless. They're like,
Mhm.
so when you choose to stop running and hitting yourself against that brick wall and actually sitting down where your body can find peace, your energy can find peace, your mind can find peace, they're like, realize that you are actually choosing that. And
Mhm.
that's when you come back into a sense of personal control because you chose to change the direction you were going. So I think
Mhm.
that's really cool in how
Mhm.
they're framing that, because it's like, oh yeah, it does come back to conscious choice always, conscious choice in the moments. And sometimes that conscious choice is surrendering and going in a different direction,
Mhm.
and finding the things that can bring us back to peace.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah. And I think even kind of closing that back into what is more like vulnerable or surrendering than like laying out in grass or like nature, right? Like if you think about where we as humans would be probably the most vulnerable is like laying somewhere in nature, the ocean, or wherever, where like we don't have all of the comforts and protections that we have gotten used to and desire, and all of that. And so I think kind of going back to just grounding, and even if you don't have access to grass, like they keep showing me like lay on your floor and imagine yourself in the grass, right? Like that has just as much power. Our mind doesn't know the difference between what it's imagining and what it's experiencing. So if you don't, you're like, oh, I don't, I mean, I wouldn't lay in my backyard with three dogs. So I'm not going to be laying down out there. But if I didn't have a field or something to go to, use the power of your mind, because that is just as powerful. Um, and one of the things that came through when I was chatting with my client yesterday, and they keep telling me to share it, is that, um, and I know you've talked a little bit about this, and they gave a little bit of context to me around like connecting in, if things feel really chaotic up top, connect into Gaia, and that she can provide wisdom and guidance as well that won't stray you from what the greater plans that they're figuring out are. Because if you think about the existence of the earth from like a spiritual perspective and the energy of it, she's seen it all. She's seen our human decline, she's seen our human growth probably multiple times over, right? And so like her consciousness knows where we should be going, and if we're as a humanity evolving and growing and ascending, like she's already seen that before. So she knows the tidbits and the ways to nudge us along, while maybe some of that higher level stuff is getting sorted out and it feels really like chaotic. Because for me it's very 3D things. When do we sell our house? Do we just sell? Do we do this? Are we moving? What the, who's going where? What the, it's happening? Like it's very 3D chaotic stuff that I'm like, hey, well, I gotta do something. Like if we're doing it, we're doing it, or we're not, right? So it's in those moments of like, okay, I don't know what the final outcome is gonna be. Can I go sit in the sunshine for a few moments and just try to like connect into that energy, feel grounded in my chaos that might be happening inside and wanting to control and figure it out, and just ask like what's the next right step in this moment? If I can't know what's going to happen in the end, like what do I just do right now? And if that's hold tight, then okay, I got to trust what my intuition is saying.
Beautiful. I
Yeah.
love that. That brings it all together so perfectly. So, um, I think maybe we just leave it at that for today and just something to ponder throughout the weekend. Spirit did say to have fun this weekend, find joy this weekend to really balance out a lot of this whirly, not quite knowing where to go. It's like focus on the fun, whatever that is for you. So definitely recommend that. But
And there's a new moon eclipse of what's
there's
happening.
a new moon and it's a black moon, meaning it's a double new moon in the month of April. So that's extra
Okay.
emphasis on intention setting, plus a partial solar eclipse too. So that's extra new energy, new beginnings, reset, all of that kind of stuff. So the more you put your energy towards that,
Mm-hmm.
um, the more you can help kind of like clear through the muck.
Yeah,
And
it's that like pulling down those timelines, right? It's that holding space for, and the best energy to do that in is from a place of joy and fun and happiness and stuff. So that is probably why too help
absolutely.
to shake off some of the heaviness that we've been carrying, and also, use that energy to call in what you want.
Yeah, perfect.
Cool.
All right. Well, thank you everyone so much for watching. You guys, we truly appreciate you. Please do subscribe, share, and like. Hit that like button. That helps us out a lot. And as well, if you guys want to expand your consciousness, your journey, your exploration of self, check out avalonspirit.com. We have so many avenues beyond our preferred expertise
Mhm.
um, for you to explore. So definitely check that out. And we will see you guys again next week with something else.
Something else. And let us know if there's anything you want us to talk about. We're always open to feedback.
Absolutely. All right, everyone. See you later.